My name is Jeff Morgan. I am from Dallas, Texas. And as a follow-up to the video that I just did regarding the Supreme Court hearing, the petition, the writ of mandamus or the writ of prohibitions filed by Mr. Jeff Younger, I want to talk a little bit further about this whole idea about transgender stuff. And what I want to look at instead, though, is the issue of body integrity disorder. Now, body integrity disorder is when there's a person who presents himself or herself and says, you know what, I've got this healthy limb right here, but for some reason he or she doesn't like it, wants to become an amputee, cut off my arm, cut off my leg, cut off something because I just don't like my limb. That is considered a body integrity disorder. And we would not allow this to take place under normal circumstances. Amputation is the last resort when something is dire and needs to take place. Can you imagine that, on one hand, we say that we will not cut off a person's arm if it's healthy, we'll not cut off a person's leg if it's healthy or anything like that, but we will permit procedures to take place that will cut off a girl's breasts, a mastectomy, when they're 12, 13, 14 years old. We allow people to chemically castrate children that are under the age of 18, 16, 15, 14, 13. We can start this at a very, very, very young age. And what's even worse about the situation with Mr. Younger's son is that his son knows he's a boy. His son wants to be a boy. This is a mother who wants to force the son to go through a process in which he will be chemically castrated. And she is being assisted in this whole process by Jessica Janicek of Coons Fuller Law Firm and Judge Mary Brown of 301st District Court. So when you look at issues like body integrity disorder, we know immediately that if a person wants to get an arm cut off or a leg cut off, there is a psychological issue involved here. This is not a physical issue. If you have a perfectly good arm, a perfectly good hand, I don't know why they want to do this, but it is a psychological issue. And the same thing with the so-called transgenderism. Transgenderism is a psychological issue. I've spoken with some people that have gone through this, and one of the commonalities that you tend to find is that there tends to be, not always, but there tends to be some sexual abuse that has taken place in their life. Some type of abuse, particularly sexual abuse. So by saying that, we want to be able to preserve trans rights, what you're saying is that you think that sexual abuse is okay on children. Because after the sexual abuse takes place, you'll find that over the period of time, there are children that want to change their sexual identity as a result of the trauma they experience from sexual abuse. Whether it comes down to body integrity order. Say that you have a child that says, you know what, I don't like my breasts. Or a boy that says, ooh, I hate the shape of my penis. And he wants to get his penis cut off, or she wants to get her breast cut off. That is another psychological issue that has nothing to do with transgenderism. That is a psychological issue. It's like saying that, somebody has bulimia, and the way that we're going to help that person with bulimia is not to help them through the process, but to actually shut their stomach or something so that they don't want to take in food, but this way, if they do take in food, it doesn't get into their body. That's ridiculous. And that's what's going on again with this whole transgender stuff. There's a couple of terms in particular regarding this. Apotemnophilia. This is the desire for amputation of a very healthy limb. Healthy limb, like I said, you can just get it cut off. There's xenomelia, and that is also called foreign limb syndrome. And this is non-acceptance of one or more of one's extremities, and the resulting desire for the limb to be amputated or to become paralyzed. Again, these are psychological issues that we're talking about. This has nothing to do with biology. It has nothing to do with it has everything to do with gender ideology, brainwashing a kid, but it has nothing to do with his or her biology. Then we also have somatoparaphrenia, which is a delusional belief whereby a patient feels that a paralyzed limb does not belong to his or her body. That's a little bit different, but it's the same thing. I have a paralyzed limb, and somehow in the person's mind they said, well, if the limb is paralyzed, it just doesn't belong to me, and I guess they cut that off as well. But the commonality among all of these things is that they are psychological. They are not physical in nature. Same thing with transgenderism. Is there a transgender gene? I've never heard of one. Is there something in the body that says, I'm a transgender person? No, this is something that is actually a psychological issue that people have been almost forcing down our kids' throats. When I went to grade school years and years and years ago, there was nobody that we knew that was transgender. There was one person that we thought maybe was a little bit gay or whatever you want to call it, but that was it, and everybody knew about that person. But today we have multitudes of people in schools that have been brainwashed into thinking that they're homosexual or lesbian, or in this case, transgender. Whatever that is, nobody even knows what that is. In fact, there was one lady that I was reading about recently said, had it been 5 years ago that she had these feelings, she would not have had a mastectomy. This never would have been recognized, and she would have been able to had her breast be saved. I believe that she's also the person who's suing the doctor for medical malpractice, even though she requested the mastectomy and her parents acquiesced and allowed this to take place. She's suing for medical malpractice. She was under the age of 18. She was not mature enough to make this decision. And I hope that she wins. At the same time, what I think about with this whole thing with transgenderism and what's going on with the James Younger case right now is that James and Jude Younger are twins. The father has been kicked out of their life by a judge, and it never should have happened. But again, there are twins, and there's a mother here, Ann Georgelis, a pediatrician, and she almost seems to be playing a game with twins. Like one twin is going to become a girl in her mind, the other twin is going to become a boy. And it kind of reminded me of the whole thing about Josef Mengele, because Josef Mengele was with the Nazi army, and he loved to do experiments on people. When he was in Auschwitz, he saw the opportunity to conduct genetic research on human subjects. His experiments focused primarily on twins with no regard for the health or safety of the victims. And according to this one article that I was looking at, his medical procedures showed no consideration for the victim's health, safety, physical or emotional suffering. I've read or I've heard from a number of people that have gone through this so-called transition surgery, transgender surgery, and then have detransitioned, gone back to their former self. People that have woken up immediately after the surgery was over and said, my God, what did I do? People that embraced it for some time, and then as they continued further down the path, they realized they were just stupid young people that did this stuff, and they regret it to their dying day. Some have been able to successfully transition back. Others have done so, but not with the same degree of success, where they still have the fact that they have no penis or something along those lines. But one of the things that Josef Mengele loved to do, he was particularly interested in identical twins. Now, James and Jude are not identical twins, but Mengele liked to play with identical twins. He did a lot of experiments on identical twins. One of the reasons that Mengele may have wanted to do this was that it was reported that the twin studies may have been motivated by an intention to uncover strategies for racially desirable Germans to reproduce more twins. Now, what it says about Mengele's research subjects is that they were better fed and housed, and were housed better than other prisoners. They were temporarily spared from execution in the gas chambers. His research subjects lived in their own barracks, where they were provided with marginally better quality of food and somewhat improved living conditions than other camps. When visiting his subjects, Mengele, also called the Angel of Death, Mengele used to introduce himself as Uncle Mengele. Uncle Mengele, how nice. And he offered the twins sweets, while at the same time being personally responsible for the deaths of unknown number of victims, whom he had killed via lethal injections, shootings, beatings, and his deadly experiments. Later, one person would describe Mengele as sadistic, lacking empathy, and extremely anti-Semitic. One former Auschwitz inmate said of Mengele, he was capable of being so kind to the children, to have them become fond of him, to bring them sugar, to think of the small details in their daily lives, and to do things that we would genuinely admire. And then, next to that, the crematoria smoke. And these children, tomorrow or in half an hour, he is going to send them there. Well, that is where the anomaly lay. With regard to the twins, they were subject to weekly examinations, measurements of their physical attributes by Mengele or by one of his assistants. The experiments he performed on the twins included unnecessary amputation of limbs, intentionally infecting one twin with typhus or some other disease, and transfusing the blood of one twin into another. Many of these victims died while undergoing these procedures, and those who survived the experiments were sometimes killed and their bodies dissected once Mengele had no further use for them. Mengele personally killed 14 twins in one night by injecting their hearts with chloroform. If one twin died from the disease, he would kill the other twin to allow for comparative post-mortem reports to be produced for research purposes. But with regard to Mengele, he loved performing this experiment on twins. Currently, we have what Josef Mengele was doing in Auschwitz, taking place in broad daylight here in the state of Texas, and also now evidently in the state of California. We have one mother, Anne Georgelis, and she's not even the biological mother. She carried the children to the best of my knowledge, but she was not the biological mother. And she is trying to change one of the boys into a girl and keep the other one a boy. And by the way, you cannot change a boy into a girl. You can mutilate a boy, but you cannot change him at the DNA level. He still remains a boy. He does not turn into a girl. He still remains a mutilated boy. And this is taking place again right now. She has fled the state. I believe she's in California already, because in a few days, California is going to give her refuge and also disregard the fact that Texas law says that this was child abuse. Now, this was again facilitated by Mary Brown and by Jessica Janicek of the Kunstfuller law firm. Jessica Janicek, who's been defending the mother, Mary Brown, who's made the decision in favor of the mother. There was no reason that this should happen, period. This is abuse. So once again, this stuff that Josef Mengele did, the angel of death, that was condemned by the world, is now taking place under the guise of transgenderism, where Anne Georgelis has taken two children, twin children, to the state of California, aided and abetted and facilitated by Judge Mary Brown, the judge who ruled that way, and also by attorney Jessica Janicek of the Kunstfuller law firm. These are people that should be enshrined in the Hall of Evil with Josef Mengele. This should never be permitted to happen. Anybody who defends this barbaric practice, such a defense is indefensible, inexcusable, and it just says that as far as you're concerned, that your sense of morality and right and wrong is completely skewed. I stand with Mr. Younger. I stand with his children. We need to save James. We need to save thousands of children, because this is the new thing that's happening in our country. It's happening in the state of Texas. Our legislature did not get this done last session. It is a priority for this session. I hope that it's not going to be too late to save James and to save his brother and to save many other people. We need to act on this. We need to let other people know about this, and we need to call this transgender stuff that Anne Georgelis, that Mary Brown, that Jessica Janicek are either doing or aiding and abetting in and facilitating pure, barbaric, evil, and satanic, and that includes the law firm Kunstfuller as well. Thank you.